Welcome to the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, the show that puts the spotlight on the incredible women who fuel the world of motorsports. From drivers to crew members, engineers to fans, and everyone in between, we're here to celebrate the trailblazers, dreamers, and doers shaping the sport we love. Each episode, we share inspiring stories of females of all ages from every corner of the motorsports universe, past, present, and future. It's a journey through the seasons of life filled with heartfelt moments, laughter, and a whole lot of horsepower. So whether you're a lifelong fan, a racer yourself, or simply curious about the extraordinary women behind the wheel, settle in, relax, and enjoy a fun and uplifting ride with us. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, connecting and celebrating women in motorsports, one story at a time. Let's hit the track. Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. My guest today is Christy Kendall, and Christy's got a great story that she's going to share with us about herself and her interest in karting. And so we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, Christy, would you tell me a little bit about yourself so my listeners know who is Christy Kendall?
Wow. Well, thank you for having me on. First off, I very much appreciate the opportunity to share not only my story, but the story of what it is we do, and hoping that will touch other people to want and get involved into motorsports, not just karting, any form of motorsports. Mm-hmm. I started karting when I was 6 in South Florida. My dad was a flat tracker and had this dream of winning the Daytona 200. And, between the flat track bikes and him building a cafe bike, somehow we found karting. And of course, it started out like so many do at the local rental track. And my parents quickly figured out that they were spending their entire paycheck on taking the little princess here to the racetrack. And I was so little tiny, I sat on their lap and all they did was, mat the gas pedal and I just steered. And that developed into buying a kart, and that developed into another kart, and then racing by the time I think we lied about my age the first year. I started racing when I was 8. I was really 7. I don't believe anybody really believed that because I was so tiny. And then we moved to Ohio, sold all of our equipment, bought new equipment, got into racing a couple years later, and stayed in racing through my, better portion of my adolescent years. And it's been one of those things where I've been in and out of karting off and on over 50 years now.
Wow.
And I'm back in it again, whole hog, full tilt, hammer down. And I now have a kart shop, a kart team. I have a great shop. I love my shop. My shop is my sanctuary. I have a great kart team of young talent, mostly juniors. I do have one mini Swift driver. I'd love to have another one. But we found our niche and our stride in helping develop young talent and helping to make them the whole package. It's more than just driving.
Oh, yeah.
These kids wrench. They learn to speak well. They learn to carry themselves. You have a bad day at the track. Yeah, we all want to lash out. You know what? Shush. Go back to the trailer and deal with it there. But we also deal with a lot of issues when it comes to family communication. On our team, we're a little bit different. But I got involved here where I'm at now after leaving the equestrian business and the racehorse business after 36 years.
Wow. And
that was my core business my entire adult life, basically. And I retired in 2018 and said it was time for something new, and met an incredible man. And he said, "Hey, I'm not moving to Ohio, so you better be moving to Mississippi." And I moved here in 2019. And I love it. I love where I live. I love the community. I love the sense of the heritage here. It's completely different than being up north. I'm a transplant Yankee. I tell people all the time, I'm a Yankee girl in the redneck world. And I love it. I love it geographically. I love the weather. I love the heat. Must be from our years in Florida. I don't know, but it's kind of a sadistic thing to like it as hot as it is here. But I wouldn't change anything for the world. And I'm happy with the path I'm on right now.
Yeah, I can see it on your face and I can hear it in your voice.
Oh, thank you.
Wouldn't even, it shows, absolutely shows. So you've been in motorsports, like you said, on and off. So let's talk about what you're doing now, because that's really cool and exciting. Talk about your team, all the things you're doing.
How much time we got?
We got all the time. We got till we got an hour.
So when I moved here, Alan took me to his local track, which was a property of the city of Jackson Park and Recs Department. And it's located at a little place called Buddy Butts, Butts. Don't laugh, that's the real name. Buddy Butts Park. It's a former POW camp. And it's also home to the Mississippi River Basin model. Two things that are very historic and very important to this region. The River Basin model was to help establish and understand water mitigation as it feeds through the tributaries into the Mississippi River. Okay. And it also served as a defense mechanism during acts of war, because without the Mississippi River, we got big problems in this country, right? So at the time, this facility was over 680 acres. Lake Speed built the racetrack that is still here today. When we got involved, it was kind of a shock because many people were changing gear to change their clutch engagement, which technically works, but isn't ideal. So Ellen and I, we kind of forced ourselves on a few people and said, hey, let us help you because we can help you become better. Yes. And then we realized they had no place to buy things. And then we realized that they were driving 20-year-old equipment because they didn't know where to go. And it sounds simple to us because we go on the internet, buy everything we need. And you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know. Yeah. And one thing led to another. And they wanted some growth in their club and asked if I would be involved. And we went from 7 members to 72 members in 5 or 6 months. And then the racing surface finally started to die. And they had allowed previously cars and motorcycles on the property, and it tore the surface up. And then they didn't have it properly secured by a fence, which would keep other activities off. Big cars, people out there causing, some sort of vandalism, and people with motorcycles like big dirt bikes, which just tear the heck out of the surface. So over time, in many seasons and many years, it just gave up. So we deemed it too unsafe to compete on, went after a grant for about $300,000, was awarded the grant. City Parks and Recreation has changed, I'm not going to say management, but leadership. And the leadership that's currently in place is all about us redoing this racetrack. Nice. And it's a little tiny 3/8 mile, but it's like short track. If you're going to get fit, you go to a short track. And this place is very technical. It's very tight, but we have a 410-foot straightaway, which is pretty darn long in karting. Not long compared to places like NOLA Motorsports Park or even AMP, but it's a substantial straightaway for an old school racetrack. Mm-hmm. We've added $115,000 in 8-foot fence. That's the perimeter fencing. The new asphalt should be going in here within 30 to 45 days. We expect to be back on track there in the month of March. So this has been a 3-year grind, and thank goodness I have a great deal of tenacity. I don't give up easily, and I'm very thankful for the City Parks and Recreation Department at the City of Jackson, because they have really done a very good job in helping us pull all this together.
You know what I love about that is, so I live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and there's a racetrack not far from me.
East Lansing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of tracks close to me, but there's a track not far from me, a little track, and they have to fight to put in new bathrooms. They have to fight to paint in, and they just fight these people over and over. And what they don't realize is that everybody stops at the McDonald's on the way to the track and gets food, or after. Yeah. Or they go to the Subway, which is right there. There's a gas station that people buy their gas at. And so, and that's, you get off the highway and it's right there. And then it's like 5 minutes to the track. And so why are they fighting? Why aren't they supporting like your place is?
For us, I think a lot of it is we're in the city of Jackson. However, we are surrounded by the city of Clinton. And so this is kind of like this little finger over here, and Jackson's clear over here. So even when we have an issue at the track, you call 911 and they will be, that's not our jurisdiction. Yes, it is. So we're getting that hammered out now. But what they don't see is that karting is millions of people worldwide. Oh, yeah. Millions. Yeah. I mean, my team alone Even my customer base is about 195 people.
Yeah.
That's just here locally. That doesn't include our national customers.
Right.
If every one of those people bought at Subway on their way to our track, imagine the economic impact that would be. Or stayed at a hotel on Friday night so they could be at the track early on Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of people that like to come out to our track and camp because it's a very outdoorsy type atmosphere. At dusk, there'll be 20 deer in the backfield behind the track.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of nowhere, and it's
Right.
absolutely scenic. I will say this, though. The area businesses have been very welcoming. Some of them have contacted me here recently saying, hey, if there's anything we can do. We do have a couple of very nice barbecue joints in the area. One is a franchise of a national brand. We have some brand new hotels that have gone in 10 minutes from the racetrack that are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the area is it's a petri dish for growth right now.
Right.
And we just need to tap into it in an effective manner. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times these businesses don't understand that we're even there.
Well, and the other thing is, let's face it, people who are involved in racing are, not the kind of people you want in your establishment. And that is so old school, but it's so true still.
It's not like we're rolling up with the Hells Angels at karting.
But no, but you know what I'm saying?
I do. Well, the days where we would take motors in and work on them on the countertop of the local Howard Johnson's. I mean, we got some stories, but we tried to clean the clutch oil off the carpet. We really did. Yeah. But those days are over. We don't do that now. No. Now we all have big tents and trailers and we have the facilities to do those emergency repairs at the racetrack. Back then we didn't. Heck, we were lucky with lights and flushing toilets.
And let's face it, you can't be in any kind of motorsports if you don't have some kind of funding. So it attracts probably a different kind of person than it used to.
Absolutely. I think that the condensation of what we used to have before, where, we were putting a go-kart up on a 55-gallon drum that was supposed to be a trash can, those days are over. I mean, just Allen's cart, we've got a lift that's probably $2,000.
I know.
And it's not electric, it's hydraulic.
Yeah.
We have a lot of things today that we didn't have back in the day. And the sport has advanced. With advancements come cost. With costs come a different level of clientele.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of these people are spending money. They're paying big money and they're not afraid to throw it out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if their kid is the one that's racing.
Yes.
There's no, they'll do whatever they have to do pretty much to get that kid on the track. So, yeah, so great. So what's the name of your store?
We are Drive Your Line Kart Sport. And that's the name of the shop, the website, and the team. Okay. And then we also have Drive Your Line Podcast. Mm-hmm. And that can be found on YouTube and various other streaming services. But YouTube is where we spend most of our time. Okay. We send a lot of people there. Obviously, we do have a social media presence, and we also go live on there periodically too.
Okay. So you interview kids, adults, women, men. Who do you interview on your podcast?
We're going to start getting into a little bit more about the competitors. So up until now, the podcast was new back in August, actually July, the end of July. And we concentrated on creating content that was going to be beneficial for any listener, somebody who's new in the sport, somebody who's old in the sport. And we wanted to bring in those icons. I mean, our first American world champion, the very first person I ever interviewed was Lake Speed. And Lake is a Mississippi boy. He's from Jackson. He eventually became the first American ever to win the FIA-CIK World Championship. He beat Ayrton Senna, as well as a host of other notables. And he's still in the sport. I mean, he's gone to NASCAR. He was a privateer. He was a company man. Lake did not start in motorsports in that era of his life until he was older. Mm-hmm. I believe Lake was in his 30s, which by today's standards is completely unheard of.
Oh, yeah.
The man is in his middle 70s and he can still wheel it like a boss. Mm-hmm. He has karts. He's still a very active member at Trackhouse over in Mooresville. Last time I saw Lake, he was wheeling twin engine 135 CCC open, and it was literally breathtaking to watch.
Yeah.
And he gave some of these younger guys a clinic of how this thing was supposed to be driven. And it's amazing that the sport brings people back time and time again, much like myself. You know, I've dabbled a little bit in midgets and sprint cars and a couple sports cars here and there, but I always come back to karting. One, it's the biggest bang for the buck. I don't care how many people complain about how expensive it is. How many people can go to Daytona and compete on the same track as the 24 hours of Daytona, the Rolex, for under $5,000 or $6,000?
Yeah,
that's unheard of.
Right.
I mean, even Alan's cart, it's capable of doing 100.5 laying on your back with an engine in both sides of your head. We've got maybe $15,000, $18,000 in that cart invested, plus maybe $1,000 in entry fees, and you can go there every year and just have a ball and enjoy the cart and drive it for what it's worth.
You know, you think about putting $5,000. This is how you can compare. Put $5,000 in a cart. Yeah. My grandson played hockey when he was 12, and it was $5,000 a season for him to play hockey.
And he's going to outgrow equipment from year to year.
Oh, and that doesn't count extra stuff, tournament fee. I mean, some tournament fees, but they were always having to pay something for this or that. Yeah. So when, you know, for somebody who doesn't have a clue, 5,000 might sound like a lot. For somebody involved in motorsports from, you know, the very beginning up through F1 or whatever, $5,000 is a deal to get started. And that's a car that you can run more than just a season.
Yes. And for some of these kids, you know, once they get to the junior level, so your junior level is about 8 years old and up. Actually, let's see, you're going to be in a cadet to about 10 or 11. And then from there, you're going to be a full-blown junior. So that's a full-size cart. And that could take you into your senior year. It depends on how much abuse it sees, how many races it sees, how many tracks, how many times does it get flipped, how many times does it get damaged, right? So you always have to take that into consideration. Some of these chassis flex out about 5-6 races. But you know what? That's a great opportunity for somebody at the club level to get into good equipment at a reasonable price.
Exactly.
I don't have that many customers, though. I do have a few. They insist on brand new equipment, even at the club level. And for those guys, I'm truly, truly thankful. But they're very rare. But they're also the guys who give a good deal to the next guy coming up. And those people help keep the sport alive. And I will cater to them every chance I get. But karting as a whole, it's the same everywhere in racing. How fast do you want to go? How much money do you want to spend?
Right.
You want to go to the national, international level? It's going to be $5,000, $10,000 a weekend.
Yeah.
A weekend. You want to go to a regional level? About $2,000, $3,000. It just depends on where your drive is.
Yeah.
There is still so much that moniker, it takes money to get places. That's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Our team is trying really hard to put in a different program basically in place for our drivers. Not every driver has a daddy that can write a check for $40,000, $50,000 for them to go test a sports car for somebody.
Right.
Or to go to a driving school. So we're trying to implement something where a driver every year, every 2 years, whenever somebody's ready, and we really feel that they can make it to that next level. They have, and it's not even so much about the talent, it's about the whole package. They have the wherewithal, the want, the drive, and they see value in their skill set, and they take it quite, you know, personally. They really strive to do more. And, you know, there's a lot of times I get people asking me, well, why don't you have so-and-so on your team? They got to want it.
Yeah.
And we're not, by far, we are not the big team on campus, right? But we have a little bit different program. You can go write a check. Kart will be waiting for your driver. Your driver will go out. His data will get looked at. His video will get looked at. He might get coached a little bit. And then you pick up junior, you go home. When you come to a DYL event, dad's going to be the wrench, or mom. We have some moms at wrench. They're going to come. Junior's going to learn to wrench. Yeah. We're going to go out and track walk with our team manager, who's friggin' phenomenal. And then you're going to learn something. He's going to sit down. He's going to analyze all your data with you and all your video with you. And then you're going to go back out and look at the track again. You're going to go over where you messed up. And then you're going to go over where you got it right. And so many teams, I mean, I sit there at all these events, I kind of sit there quietly and I watch. And it's sad because I see so many drivers with this. You know, they got this in their hand. This is
Oh, yeah.
This is not going to teach you kids how to drive. Put the darn thing down.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it shows somebody, a team owner or somebody who could possibly give you a hand up. It shows them that you're not engaged, that
Right.
you're not interested, and you sure as heck are not looking to go to the next level.
Yeah. And like you said, it's more than just the talent.
It is.
You know, it's, yes, you have to really want it. I think that's number one. You have to really want to give up everything else. This is what you want. But I love what you said about you teach them, you know, how to deal with relationships maybe, or how to do an interview, or all of the things that it takes. Because, you know, you can look at any level of driving. There might be some really, really good drivers, but they hurt themselves when they start to open their mouth.
There are certain words in the English language that should be completely eliminated, like, you know, about that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are what I call insecure fillers. And years ago, I used to go to Indianapolis, and I used to go to the Toastmasters there. And Toastmasters, unfortunately, has kind of changed their policies. But back then, it was all these kids that are now household names. You know, Justin Allgaier was in the room, Reed Sorensen was in the room. And, you know, we had a lot of kids that are now doing very well, speak very well. And they were part of that Toastmaster Indianapolis program. And Toastmasters now offers a junior program, which we are really trying hard to implement here. But I have to have 25 adult members in a club first. Let me see. I don't know where I can put that into my schedule to organize, run, and make sure it happens.
Exactly.
So here pretty soon, we are going to do what we call a hybrid, and that will be online as well as in person, like 4 times a year, because a lot of our drivers are from multiple areas in the South. So it's hard for them to get to our shop on a Tuesday night, right?
Right.
So we're going to try and make it as accommodating for them, but they got to do the homework. So when they come to do their in-house speech, you got to deliver the goods. You can't, I race a lot. It's not going to fly.
No.
So I'm hoping that this will be able to provide them a little confidence and a little bit of focus as to what it is they really need to work on.
Yeah.
And then hopefully we can open it up for everybody outside of our team too, not just for us.
Yeah. That's a great idea. So what's your team consist of? What do you have? Who's on your team? What do you do?
Wow. So Rhett Thomas is our team manager, and we have Rhett for the Stars Championship Series, and we also have him for TSRS, which is Texas Sprint Race Series, and they do concentrate. I believe they're complete. Nope, I take that back. Most of their events are in Texas. One event is at NOLA Motorsports Park, in Louisiana. Stars is a national event. They have 4 events all over the country. I think they might be up to 5 this year. And then we also go to the American Road Race Alliance, which is a KRA, and that's big track stuff. So that's Daytona, Mid-Ohio, Pittsburgh, Nelson's Ledges, Summit Point, and NC Car.
Okay.
We teach these kids how to sprint race, and then we also teach them the value of road racing. And I got news for you. If you're going to go to the next level and you're going to stay a road racer, you're not road racing on a half-mile sprint track. You are racing on a big track, 2 miles,
Right.
2 miles. I mean, Daytona's 3.6. That is a different mindset. That's different strategy. That's a different style of driving. That's understanding a true draft, not what you think you experience in a sprint track. So we've tried to give our kids as much diversity on track as possible, 2-cycle, 4-cycle. But our first member to start was Derek Wargo, and Derek is a little powerhouse. And I've had people say he's your favorite. No, he's the most seasoned. But Derek right now is a junior. He's 15. He's from Metairie, Louisiana. He runs 2-cycle, 4-cycle sprint and road race. He is the WKA 2024 100cc junior national champion. He is a former CKNA South champion. Derek is a very well-rounded young man. Speaks well, drives well. I have Luca Gomes. Luca originally is from Rio de Janeiro. He's our little Brazilian import. Heck of a driver, good kid. Watch them really just explode this past year, both in knowledge, wherewithal, grit. His attitude is just so much more professional than what it was a year and a half ago. I have Connor Coursey. Connor Coursey was a sim rig kid, and he went to his local track that we go to do our team days. And they have a rental facility. It happens to be an FIA certified track. And the owner says, you know what, you're pretty good. Here's Christy's card. Call her. They have been our customer through his 4-cycle into his 2-cycle. He's now racing nationally. He has been in the cart about a year and a half.
Wow.
Just won his first national event at Daytona this past Christmas. So we are very proud of him. He was drafting by with a bunch of seniors and passes Derek Wargo, and Derek won it in, and Connor went, nope. So Connor got the win, and Derek says, wow, my buddy just blew me off. I'm like, would you have done the same? Yeah, I'm proud of him. He goes, I don't know whether to be proud or mad.
Yeah.
We have Silas Root. Silas is what we call a cadet. He's the next group down from juniors. He is in a mini Swift, which is a much smaller 2-cycle. He runs CK&A in 4-cycle. He runs Stars in 2-cycle. Hopefully we'll be able to see him at some of the road race events that he's allowed to compete at. And then we have Sebastian Gagliano. Sebastian has just moved up to junior 4-cycle. He will eventually move into 2-cycle, but his first event was Talladega Grand Prix. Great big track. He did very well. We were pretty proud of that guy. And then we turn around, we throw him to the wolves at the national. His second ever.
Why not?
Hey, his dad says, hey, he's not going to learn without it. Connor Coursey had the same education. His second race was the IKF Grands in Texas. So, we're not afraid to throw them into the fire a little bit, but we pull them out before they get too charcoaled. Yeah. But we have a good group of kids and an excellent group of parents and support systems. And each and every one of them has their own skill set that they work on, and they work together. That's the key. You have to have people on your team that work for one another.
Yes.
And with one another. So many times we get these teams that they just don't talk. And I've had more people say to me, everybody in your pit is so nice.
What a compliment.
I hope so. If the people in your pit aren't nice, you need a new pit.
Yeah.
You really should. This is not the level to be stressed out at. Mm-mm. You still want to go, and you still have things to achieve, and you still want to go out and kick butt and take names and get on top of the podium. But at the end of the day, we're still sitting around, and mom and dad are having a beer and sitting back and relaxing and meeting other people, and juniors playing. I mean, my team played tire football in the pit. They found a tire in the trash can and said, hey, this isn't supposed to be in there. And next thing you know, they were playing baseball with it, with an old axle. And there was, 10, 15 kids involved. That's what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It really should be.
Yeah.
There's a lot in karting that can be very stressful. And from green to checker, it's all business. But as soon as that checker drop, you get to kind of chill a little bit. Yeah. And if you don't let them decompress, then they're not going to be here long.
They're going to burn out.
Absolutely.
And kids that age do not need the stress.
No. They need to be able to have coping mechanisms for that stress.
Right.
As proud as I am of all the guys on my team, I wish I had a female on my team, but I haven't found the right one yet.
Yeah.
And just like the boys, it's all about, you have to prove your worth.
Yeah.
You have to prove that you want it. And until I find the right person, that seat will still stay vacant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. That's a lot to manage. And so what's your race season? When does it start? When does it end?
Our race season started the 28th through the 30th at Daytona. That was in December. That kicks off our 2025 with the World Karting Association Kart Week. And we were at the big track. That event is super cool because you have the short track at Daytona is all dirt racing. Then you have the sprint track, which is inside NASCAR 3 in the infield. That sprint racing goes on, and then we're on the big track. All three of those events are going on simultaneously.
Okay.
And it's a great experience for anybody, either A, getting involved in karting, or B, looking to see what the other two genres or disciplines do and how they do things. It's a one-stop shop. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of teams there. There's a lot of manufacturers there. So it's a great place to get information and shake hands and make acquaintances.
Yeah. So about how many people are there, do you think?
Ooh, And I feel bad because I usually ask for the entry counts at the
Oh,
end of
that's
the
okay.
event, but I haven't. Usually the sprint track is about 300, 400. Or I'm sorry, the enduro track 400, the sprint track about 300, and the dirt track, oh my gosh, they usually hit close to four figures. That dirt track is humming from early in the morning to late at night. But I just don't have the figures at this point in time. Maybe I can get you some facts and figures here.
I was just curious because I've heard the dirt track just is unbelievable.
It explodes. Years ago, when I was going to this event, we were at Municipal Stadium in Daytona. And that was predominantly run late afternoon into the evening. So we had time to leave the International Speedway and go watch. Now we just don't have the time. We're done. We're spent. We're exhausted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, so many people got sick. And that seems to be kind of everywhere right now. So guys, be careful when you're going to these races.
Yeah.
Make sure you amp up on that immune boost so you don't get as sick as some of the others. But that kicks off our year. And then we're basically cruising until the end of February. And I believe, we just ended up with an event the week after Daytona. CKNA South was at Jacksonville. Derek Wargo won that. We were really happy with him because, he was sitting like fifth on the grid. And next thing you know, here he comes, hauling butt, kicking butt, taking names, and pushed out to about a half-second lead. And we were happy to see him clinch that one.
Yeah, that's nice.
Four-cycle racing for him has kind of a big spot in his heart because that's where it all started for him, was in four-cycle. So we're always happy to see when he couples up with engine builder Howard Stewart and caps another win in his win column. Yeah. And then here soon, we'll go ahead and get ready for speed sports for TSRS. And then we kick into overdrive and go sprint racing at Charlotte and then road racing right after that.
Okay.
So we crisscross across the country. Rhett will probably end up taking the sprint team more times than we will. We will concentrate, Alan and I concentrate on the road race side of our team.
Okay.
And that's how this works the best for us. And it gives everybody the opportunity to be well-rounded in several different disciplines in karting, not just sprint racing. So the road racing is not quite as hectic, but very much about safety. Mm-hmm. These kids were doing just under 100 mile an hour at Daytona.
Wow. And how old are these kids? Or, they sound like kids to me.
So the ones that were in our camp were 13, 14, and 15.
Okay. And they're going 100 miles an hour on the track,
I think Derek said his top speed was 99.2, 99.4, something like that. Now, the big laydown cart, like I said, she'll push about 100.5.
Yeah. So for somebody who doesn't really know much about karting, a lot of times you'll see adults that are still in karting.
Oh, absolutely.
So do you want to speak to that at all? Or, is it I guess, for people to understand, it's a sport that's not just for kids. Like you're thinking, oh, they're going to outgrow that little cart. Then what do they do? So Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, for sure. We see so many people that, they're professionals now. They've gotten out of karting. We always encourage our kids to not give up their dream. You have to be realistic, but don't give up your dream. I ask them all the time, what's your dream? What's your goal? Because they're two different things.
Oh, yeah.
And if your goal is to be in motorsports, then chances are you're not really looking for a driver position. Mm-hmm. And not every driver is going to be a big household name. That's where the ego comes into play. You got to backtrack that ego a little bit.
Yeah.
But there's so many roles in motorsports. I mean, Chris Gabehart. Do you know who Chris Gabehart is?
I absolutely do. One of my favorites.
Yep. I watched Chris as a little kid. His mom, Carrie, is a very good friend of mine. And now he's running the show over there, Joe Gibbs. Yeah. And is a Daytona, two-time Daytona winning
at least. Yeah.
And he started as a kid outside of Kentucky or in Kentucky in dirt racing. And look where he's at. Yeah. He's a phenomenal driver. I mean, phenomenal. But obviously his talents were better suited for other things.
He was on Dale Jr.'s podcast.
Yep.
And talked about, how did he end up where he is? And what I see is, and I interview 99.9% women or girls. They want to be the next, this kind of driver or that kind of driver, NASCAR drivers, World of Outlaw driver. But what if you are not able to get to that, what else do you want to do? And I always encourage them, it's not all about the driver.
Exactly.
We hear, of course, they get the press, don't they? But if you're really involved in motorsports at all, you'll know who Chris Gabehart is.
Oh,
You'll know
I think
who.
he gets plenty of press for one reason or another.
Well, he does for sure, because that was kind of a move that everybody was like, "Whoa, what's happening?" But there's a lot of people that are involved in motorsports that are not the driver.
Yeah.
That the team couldn't get along without them.
So growing up in road racing, I got to know the Frys. Brandon Fry now works for Penske Porsche. Jason Burgess, who is a flagman for many karting events, he's a spotter. Wayne Taylor, I know that he's worked for other teams. Rick Folks, another road racer. Rick has gone on to work with various IMSA teams, including Andretti. And I mean, there are so many other areas that you can be involved in, that your expertise can be utilized besides sitting behind the wheel. I mean, let's be realistic. It's like becoming a professional baseball, football player, right?
Right.
There's millions of kids in this sport. What makes you think that you're going to be the winning quarterback, the star quarterback for the New Orleans Saints?
Exactly.
So you have to not necessarily have a fallback, but you have to have an appreciation that you're not going to be a driver after all.
Yeah.
Or you may have to take a back seat for a little bit and do a couple other tasks before you find that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that so many people give up because they can't find money.
Yeah.
And that's a big issue. I mean, we can talk about that a second.
Yeah.
There's right ways and wrong ways to go about sponsorship. But if you do not speak well, if you do not do well, if you're on the internet running your mouth about the good, bad, and the ugly of certain things, atmospheres, influences, whatever,
yeah,
a sponsor is going to look at that and go, nah, man, that's baggage we don't want to deal with. You have to be able to walk the walk, talk the talk, be productive, be positive, be realistic. I mean, you don't want to snow job the entire thing, but you want to at least be a realistic person and understand, what does it take to go to IMSA?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It takes 7 figures. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to go to WRL? What's it going to take to go to these other sports car venues? What's it going to take to go to USF?
Yeah.
Do you know? Because most of these kids have no clue.
Oh, and even at that, Christy, they don't even know how. If you told them it takes $2 million, they have no concept of really how much money that is. And really, that's not that much money when you think about racing.
That's one season.
Yeah.
It's a season.
But they don't, I didn't know. I thought $1 million when I was growing up. Wow.
That's a lot of money.
Was way more than it is now. That's for sure.
Yeah. And the sad thing is they figure, well, nobody's coming to me, so I quit. The wins didn't come to you either. You had to earn them.
Right.
There are other ways that you can get involved in helping create income for yourself. Go to PRI. I mean, how many roundtable discussions and seminars are there that you can be sitting in on?
With the leaders of motorsports industry. And then you go up afterwards and introduce yourself. Make yourself known to people. That's the thing. They don't do that. And so many times what I hear is the reason they got the here, there, or everywhere wasn't just their talent. It's because they met so-and-so.
They knew the right people.
And that person started watching them or whatever it was. Yeah, they met the right people. They kept in touch. And there's so much more to it than just showing up, being a good driver, and having, money behind you. There's a lot more to it.
We just had a scenario with a very well-known kart racer. And I'm not going to name names because he's got kind of an active deal going on. But we wanted to get him involved in an upper-level team. And those are hard to come by. I mean, they just don't grow on trees.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times the sponsor is very specific about the kind of exposure they want. They don't want 4 or 5 races or 6 races. They don't want to share their driver with a ride. So now you've narrowed your base down even more. So I had reached out to one particular team down south, and they called me back a couple of days later, and then they emailed me back and said, you called us and like 4 other people. And that driver was pushed to go to an event in Indianapolis, and it kind of opened up a couple of doors because though he knew those people, And though he has go-kart raced with those people, they weren't seeing his face at these events.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know how serious he was until he started showing up. And
Right.
now doors are starting to open a little bit.
Yes.
Some of that can bring you sponsorship. Some of it can bring you the opportunity, but the two have to go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you have a team and you have a schedule, you can go to potential sponsors and say, hey, look, this is what I have. And these are the marketing partners we want to bring in to not only help me, but help you.
Yeah.
Help you, the sponsor. If you're not helping them with the ROI, your pretty face is not enough for them.
No.
Your talent is not enough for them.
Mm-mm.
You could have a bag over your head and cut out 2 circles and be, the guest driver of the month. They want your personality. They want your social. They want your engagement. They want to know what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
And if you have the personality of a mop and you talk like this and your head's down in your chin and down in your chest, that doesn't give a real positive and powerful message. So there's a lot of things within motorsports, especially karting, that's not being taught that we hope that we can provide to the next generation. And then maybe as we get a better grip on what it is we do as far as our operations, maybe we can go into that realm of procuring sponsorships for some of these kids and help package them and package their sponsor for them.
Right.
There's the key.
Yeah.
But that's going to be a little bit down the road. Christy's got enough on her plate.
So Christy, let's talk a minute about where can we find your podcast? How can we listen to it?
So
if we want to follow your team, tell me all about that.
Okay. So we have a website. Obviously it's driveyourline.com or dylkartsport.com.
Okay.
And you can find us on YouTube under Drive Your Line Kart Sport. That's where you'll find us in our podcast. We do have channels on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I don't do X. Don't know why. I just haven't.
Yeah.
I probably should. And we have avenues on pretty much. I'm also on LinkedIn. You'll find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Personally, as well as Drive Your Line. And LinkedIn, and that's something I definitely want to mention. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool.
Oh, it is.
Far more powerful than Facebook. And if you are looking for people to connect with, that's where you connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
Those
are the business people.
That's right. You put your message out there. You put out the who, what, when, where, how, why. And then sit back and see if anybody meets any of those.
Right.
Are they who you need to talk to? Are they where you need to be? Are they providing what you're looking for? And if you find those people, then engage with them. Send them a message. Hey, saw this on your LinkedIn. I'd really love to have a discussion with you.
Yes.
And I've met some more times than not. And that's how Boxo USA was, because I had a conversation with Justin Maley, and he introduced me to Boxo USA, who's now one of our sponsors.
Yeah.
By the way, kick butt tools. We really like our Boxo.
There you go.
Very nice tools. I was surprised.
Awesome. I love it. Christy, we could talk for hours, but I can't.
I get it.
We may have to do another one during the season so you can let us know how you're doing.
I would love to. Anytime.
That would be awesome.
I'm so flattered that you contacted me.
Oh, the Drive Your Line drew me in at first, and then it was like, a woman running the show, and it's like, okay, this woman needs to be on my show. I want to talk to her and learn more about what she does.
I don't know how much of the show I run.
Okay.
Alan, even my son Brandon. I've got 2 boys. My oldest still lives in Ohio, but between those two, they're kind of like the workforce behind it all.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do this without them.
It's never one person.
Nope, it takes a village.
It does. It really does.
Or a pit area.
Yeah. But I so enjoyed talking to you.
I can't wait to see this when it hits. And I definitely encourage everybody, if you've never done a podcast with somebody, do it, because there's nothing that will prepare you for a camera than looking at this little spot right here.
Yeah.
And there's nobody else over there. So if you've not been invited to a podcast, you let me know. I'll invite you onto mine.
Yeah, I will too, because it's so fun, and you get to know people. And then like I'll maybe see you somewhere and it's like I already know you.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Absolutely.
so that's the best part. You make new friends too doing
Melinda,
it. So.
thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. So thanks so much for being on. And if you'll just hold on after I end the recording, I've got a couple little things to ask you, and then we'll get this out there for everybody to listen to.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. That's it for this episode of the Women's Motorsports Network podcast. We hope you've been inspired by the stories I shared today and feel more connected to the amazing community of women in motorsports. Remember, whether you're behind the wheel, in the pits, or cheering from the stands, your story matters. And together, we're driving change and celebrating every milestone. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who loves motorsports as much as you do. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more incredible stories. So until next time, stay inspired, stay connected, and keep racing through life. This is the Women's Motorsports Network podcast, where every woman's story is worth celebrating.